What's up, guys? This is Webby back again for another classic SummerSlam review. This edition, we're going to be covering the 1993 edition of SummerSlam, where Lex Luger took on the massive 560-pound plus of Yokozuna for the WWE Championship. The Undertaker took on 8-foot-tall Giant Gonzalez in a rest in peace matchup. We had Bret the Hitman Hart take on Jerry the King Lawler in who is the true king of the World Wrestling Federation at the time. Plus, who is the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time between Shawn Michaels and Mr. Perfect. All that plus so much more happened on the 1993 edition of SummerSlam that we're going to be covering right here today. You know, when I really go back and watch this edition of SummerSlam, WWE, as much as, you know, the fans kind of criticize this year for the majority, because it was a down time in the WWE. A lot of fans say it was a boring year in the WWE. They were looking for new, fresh faces because for so long we've seen the same old faces on top, the same style, the same type faces, matches all the time. Right, wrestling fans? We had seen it all the time. All the way through the 80s and 90 up till 92. So 93, we were just kind of like, come on, WWE, come on, Vinnie Mag, let's see something else. And we were starting to tune off. Well, in 1993, when I went back and watched SummerSlam, you could tell that that's the direction Vince McMahon was going in. I mean, the mid-card, one double main event, if you could so-called say that's what they had, was Bret Hart versus Jerry the King Lawler. And the main event was Lex Luger and the Lex Express taking on Yokozuna. Lex Luger being the replacement, at least trying to be, of Hulk Hogan, unsuccessful, we can remember. And, of course, you know, we all know that Bret Hart kind of ended up taking that spot and taking the ball for many years later down the road, starting in 1994 when he took the WWE Championship away from Yokozuna. But this pay-per-view, we saw a lot of changes. We saw Bobby the Brain Heenan and Vince McMahon on the commentators. Now, some of you might say, well, that's not a change. What we saw out of Bobby the Brain Heenan in this pay-per-view was a change. You know, all the way throughout his career as a broadcast journalist, as he always called himself, was jokes, was being funny, and that kind of stuff was with Gorilla Monsoon. We didn't see that out of Bobby the Brain Heenan this time. Now, what we did see was something that every wrestling fan today wants to see on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live. They actually calling the action. They actually called what was inside the squared circle. We didn't get them just talking about what's happening at the pay-per-view, what's happening on Total Divas, or things of that nature. They called the match itself. I really enjoyed that. Something that was different, Mean Gene Okerlund didn't cut any promos. He did not do any backstage interviews on this pay-per-view. Now, we all know that later on that year, he did go to WCW. This might be one reason why. But Todd Pettengill and some other guy, I'm really not sure who it is, he didn't last too long in WWE, but he cut promos with the superstars. Honestly, I didn't think he did that good of a job. Whatever the case, it was kind of a changing in the tides that WWE was trying to do a little bit. But you could see a little bit of a change. First matchup, Razor Ramon took on the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, the bad guy. Chico, could he make the $1 Million Man bankrupt at SummerSlam? Decent matchup. It was decent. The matches at SummerSlam this year, at that particular year, what I really noticed was they didn't care as much as how the match quality was. I say that, and really what I should be saying is the match style was different. The match technique was different. Match psychology was different than what it is today, and that might be why some wrestling fans criticize the matches back then now compared to what they are these days. And quite frankly, WWE put more into the storylines back then than they actually do now. Because the fans today simply care about, it seems like, the match quality more now, for the most part. I mean, the match, Razor Ramon versus $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, was good. I mean, when you really think about it, for back then, for how they wrestled back then, match quality, how $1 Million Man always wrestled, it wasn't bad. Razor Ramon, it was his standard matchup. Couldn't complain about it. In the end, with the Razor's Edge, Razor Ramon, 1, 2, 3. And then Ted DiBiase went off TV for a little bit before he came back, and then eventually, he got the $1 Million Corporation, and we knew where that led. The Steiner brothers took on the Heavenly Bodies, Dr. Style Tom Pritchard, and the Gigolo, Jimmy Del Rey, with their manager, Mr. Jim Cornette. This tag team matchup, they were in Detroit, Michigan. They were in the Steiner brothers' hometown. The tag team championship was on the line. Of course, this is a match that the Steiner brothers were going to win. And what I noticed the most about this matchup was it wasn't a match that the Heavenly Bodies was going to win. It was a match that they were trying to set up for Smoky Mountain Wrestling to really get involved with the next pay-per-view. Now, if that was WWE's intention at this pay-per-view, I'm not 100% sure, but that's really what in my eyes, what they were leading up to. Because as we know, at the Survivor Series in 1993, we saw the Smoky Mountain Tag Team Championship on the line at Survivor Series in 1993. So, I mean, that kind of goes hand in hand. And the Heavenly Bodies at the Survivor Series in 1993 captured the Smoky Mountain Tag Team Championship. So, I don't know. That just kind of went hand in hand, if you ask me. So that's kind of the where I'm putting with that. But the Steiner brothers go over here and retain the tag titles in front of their family and that kind of stuff. Why WWE doesn't do that today, I have absolutely no idea. I get the reason Bruce Pritchard said on his podcast about how you're supposed to show sympathy and that kind of stuff. But I still think you should give the fans and the family, that feel-good moment for the hometown wrestler every once in a while these days. Who is the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time? Is it Shawn Michaels, who is the reigning Intercontinental Champion, along with his bodyguard Diesel? Or is it the two-time Intercontinental Champion, Mr. Perfect? This match, it was designed simply to put Shawn Michaels over. That was it. Because you're not going to give Mr. Perfect the win here. I mean, you're just not. This match was designed to protect Mr. Perfect because of how it ended. Because Shawn Michaels won by countout with the help of Diesel. But, I mean, are you really going to have Shawn Michaels lose the IC championship to Mr. Perfect when he just won the title back? No. I mean, you're just not going to do that. Mr. Perfect is in that stage at the WWE where he's trying to help superstars for the next generation get better. And that is the direction the WWE is going in. And Shawn Michaels is up and coming in his singles career? Absolutely not. Shawn Michaels supposed to win here, make him better. That's what happens. Shawn Michaels wins by countout. And then ultimately beats down Mr. Perfect after the match with the help of Diesel. And then Mr. Perfect chases them all the way into the back. The 1, 2, 3 Kid versus Erwin R. Shyster, otherwise known as IRS. Now, 1, 2, 3 Kids first, the pay-per-view matchup in the WWE. IRS, and Million Dollar Man had been having this rivalry with Million Dollar Man, with Razor Ramon and the 1, 2, 3 Kid, because Razor Ramon and 1, 2, 3 Kid are friends. Quite frankly, I think this would have made a better tag team matchup, but then instead they made 2 singles matchups. Nothing to say about this, really. I mean, not really. This match was just blah. 1, 2, 3 Kid loses here by a clothesline. IRS victorious. Okay, whatever. Bret Hart and Jerry the King Lawler. I mean, what can you say about Jerry Lawler and Bret the Hitman Hart? A match that they really cared more about storyline than about the match itself. The fans wanted to see Jerry Lawler get his butt whipped. The fans wanted to see Bret Hart get his hands on Jerry the King Lawler. Bret Hart comes out, Jerry Lawler comes out, and he is on crutches. He gives this speech about how he was in this accident, and the doctors of the WWE said, there's no way you are competing tonight. So he has his court jester, Doink the Clown, before he turned babyface, come out. Real evil Doink, cigar in his mouth, throws water on Bret's brothers. Really evil. I really enjoyed that. Different side of Doink. I kind of liked the evil Doink more than I liked the babyface Doink. But Bret Hart wins, beats Doink the Clown, and then gets his hands on Jerry the King Lawler after Jerry Lawler, shows that he's not injured and hits Bret Hart with the crutches. President Jack Tunney says, you have to get back in the ring or you are suspended for life. Bret Hart throws him back into the ring, ends up putting him in the sharpshooter, and does not let go. Reverses the decision. Jerry Lawler is the self-proclaimed king of the World Wrestling Federation, wins by disqualification, and this ultimately continues the rivalry. It kind of gets put on hold for a little bit, but it picks back up. As we know, we end up getting a Kiss My Foot matchup. We end up getting a match at the first ever In Your House. We end up getting all these different types of matchups between Bret Hart and Jerry Lawler. Very good rivalry between these two superstars. And it was a good build to this matchup as well, with Jerry Lawler dissing the Hart family, doing all this stuff. WWE putting a lot of substance into the storyline. I really like how they did that. That is one thing the WWE did really well back then that they don't do now. I'm just going to come out and say it. Build storylines. They build storylines very well back then. One thing that they have a problem doing today. Ludwig Borga versus Marty Jannetty. Okay. Ludwig Borga, who likes to talk trash about America, taking on Marty Jannetty, who went very high with the Rockers, I think, even though they never held the tag team championship really, except for one night, and it was canceled because the ropes broke. It was never showed. Hart Foundation got the titles back. And then went poop downhill once the Rockers were broken up. Got the IC strap one time. I don't know if y'all noticed, but Vince McMahon, during this contest, before the match was even over, said, and that's it. When Ludwig Borga had Marty Jannetty in the torture rack, before Marty Jannetty even tapped out, Vince McMahon said, and that's it. And that's when the referee rung the bell. Marty Jannetty didn't even have a chance to tap out. So, yeah. It's like, okay, whatever. It's like Marty Jannetty looks even worse than what he was supposed to. This match was nothing. Absolutely nothing. And we saw where Ludwig Borga went. Nowhere in the WWE. The Undertaker took on the 8-foot Giant Gonzalez in a rest and peace matchup. No disqualification, no count out, but there will be a decisive winner. The Undertaker without Paul Bear, Giant Gonzalez with the urn, Giant Gonzalez with Harvey Whippleman. And quite frankly, when you go back and watch this, the match was better than WrestleMania 9. But, I mean, this isn't a match that I would want to go back and watch again. This isn't a rivalry that I would want to go back and watch again. This isn't anything that I would want to go back and watch again. If you go back and watch anything of The Undertaker's in the history of The Undertaker since he debuted at Survivor Series 1990, I think everybody that has been an Undertaker fan would say that they would not go back and watch anything that is him and Giant Gonzalez. In the end, a flying clothesline from the top rope takes down the Giant Gonzalez for the 1, 2, 3. And the Giant Gonzalez, rest in peace. Paul Bear comes, knocks down Harvey Whippleman, takes the urn, and then Giant Gonzalez choke slams Harvey Whippleman, and Harvey Whippleman, rest in peace as well, with the rest in peace flower ring covering him. That's it. Bam Bam Bigelow, the Head Shrinkers, versus Smoking Guns and Tatanka. There was one point in this matchup that really stood out. Bam Bam Bigelow on one turnbuckle. The Head Shrinkers was on one turnbuckle and the other turnbuckle. And they all was going to jump off the turnbuckle and do a flying headbutt, all three of them on Tatanka. And they all missed. They all missed. In the end, Tatanka and the Smoking Guns were victorious. It was all right. It was okay. Nothing to really say about this except it was one of those cool down matchups before the main event. WWE back then, especially back then, always had one of those. It wasn't always one of those bam, 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 fast-paced matches. You know, we don't always get that these days, but sometimes we do get matches, pay-per-views, that we get bam, 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 fast-paced. Not always, but sometimes. Back then, we always had that one cool-down match right before the main event. This was one of them. This was that. And finally, Lex Luger versus the massive 560-pound plus Yokozuna for the WWE Championship. Master of Ceremonies, the Macho Man, Randy Savage. I'm just going to say this. Before we even get into the matchup, before we even get into anything that has to do with Lex Luger and Yokozuna. Now, I understand that it was a changing of the tides, and WWE was trying to do stuff that was different and get more different people involved, do different things. I understand that. But from after Survivor Series of 1992 up until Macho Man left, What an underutilized talent the Macho Man Randy Savage was. I mean, seriously. He was used for coming out and just talking as the opening, welcoming people. He was used for at SummerSlam 1994, which I will do a review for in the future. He was used for, or this, as the Master of Ceremonies. He was used for nothing. He was used for just commentary. He was used for a surprise participant at Survivor Series 1993. He was used for commentary. What a waste of talent WWE used him. He was one of those talents that should have been used on the main roster very, very well. Kind of like Mr. Perfect, except winning some. Instead, extremely underused, and he left. Crying shame WWE did that. I'm just throwing that out there right now. And the more I go back and rewatch these pay-per-views and do these old school reviews for you every time one of the big 4 or 5 pay-per-views come up, it just really shows that and really reminds me how underutilized the Macho Man Randy Savage was back in those days. Wanted to throw that out there. But, they had the Japanese national anthem played in this pay-per-view, in this match. They had, of course, the United States of America national anthem played in this matchup. Kind of played along with it, kind of fit the tone of the match with how it was built. WWE played it up that Lex Luger got one opportunity for the WWE Championship at SummerSlam. And he would never get another opportunity as long as Yokozuna was the WWE Champion. Now, Lex Luger won by countout. They really, if you think about it, played it and made it where Lex Luger was going to get his rematch. And I'm still trying to figure out what in the world were they celebrating at the end of this pay-per-view? I mean, they had confetti, they had everything. There were superstars in the ring. I mean, he had won by countout. And not only did he win by countout, but he had taken off the padding that showed, which they didn't show, but apparently, he had that steel plate in his arm or whatever that he wasn't supposed to be using. And he had used that to knock out Yokozuna for the countout win. And they were all celebrating this countout victory, and he didn't win the WWE Championship. So it was like he won the battle, but Yokozuna won the war. So what were they all celebrating and happy about? I mean, theoretically, because he used that, seeing how they made it like it was so illegal for so long, and they had to use a padding for so long, somebody could have came out and stated, bam, victory overturned. They could have. They didn't, because they wanted to send the fans home happy, and they wanted to make it. If you want to really think about it, I shouldn't be criticizing this because it made it for a good storyline. For the Royal Rumble when Lex Luger and Bret Hart won the Royal Rumble matchup because they both hit the floor at the same time, which led to a double main event at WrestleMania 10. Yokozuna defended the belt twice, but theoretically, a referee could have came out and said, hey, he used his arm that had that steel plate in it, so the match could have been turned over. Theoretically, they could have done that. But they didn't because they wanted to send the fans home happy. And they wanted to play up that storyline. But whatever the case, Lex Luger and Yokozuna had a decent contest. It was decent. It wasn't great. And Lex Luger victorious by a countout. Not the new WWE champion, like Macho Man Randy Savage said he would be at the beginning of the match. And that is your 1993 SummerSlam review. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you did, hit that thumbs up. If you enjoy it, please hit the bell for all notifications. Please subscribe. Go back and watch anything you missed. My 4th of July bash, my hunt for Bigfoot, my Raw and SmackDown live reviews, anything else that you've missed on the channel. Much appreciated. Don't forget my July 31st big podcast, big celebration for my 2-year anniversary, amongst everything else that I will be doing right here on the channel leading up to it. This week, preview and predictions of Extreme Rules, the review of Extreme Rules next Sunday, plus everything else that I usually do right here on the channel each and every week. Much appreciated. And until I see you again, this is Webby, and I will catch you on the other side. Talk to you later.